Welcome everyone to episode 1 of the BNSF Fall River Division. This is based on a HO scale model railroad which was recently featured by NS Modeler 24, and one that's really kind of struck a chord with me at this point in terms of just its realism and its scale. It's multiple subdivisions or districts depending on how you refer to it, and a lot of big industries and a number of complexities, very similar to prototype, trackage rights, and just a lot of fun. I must admit I probably watched the layout tour NS Modeler 24 did at least 15 or 20 times before stumbling on some other coverage other YouTubers had done who were lucky enough to visit the route. We started in Richmond, which is a major crew change point on the western end of the route, and that's something that I'm taking bits and pieces of Spokane, Washington, and just kind of taking little scenes and trying to recreate, little sections of the route. We've just passed what's the primary coal mine on the route, and it's a nice feature to have because you've got this complexity of trains coming in, loading, departing, sort of all in one motion, which has been a lot of fun to operate so far. We're now passing through the double track section of Ardmore, where there's a large concrete facility, and where the separated main will combine into one. I hate this area of track in terms of how I laid the one kind of divergence or recentering of that main line there on the left hand side, and so we'll be redoing that. We're continuing towards Kimber, so this is Railroad East. We'll have a diamond between the BNSF and Union Pacific, with the UP crossing from right to left and BN left to right with the concrete track. This is actually not a part of the modeled portion, but something I added because I had a little more space to create a feeling of the two railroads passing through town in kind of a parallel portion. So here at Kimber, not a lot of scenery, but we are really just trying to lay down a lot of the track. There'll be a branch that heads off kind of camera right to another set of industries. Hopefully I'll get to there at some point. But now we're going to head really from the rural flat terrain and start climbing into the mountain area. Now we're starting our climb here at MRL Junction, which is going to branch off here to the left and represents in the model portion just a little stub end interchange track, but I've actually taken this and just built a small 3-track staging loop to just give a little operational diversity depending on what you want to do in terms of how you want the MRL interchange to work, whether it's just a few cars or with a train. And we're heading here to West Overlook, and this is really going to feel a lot as I model it using Mariah's Pass over the Rocky Mountains as a guide here in terms of how to scenic the part between the camera and the track, as that's not really modeled, as there's a fascia and all that because it exists in a basement. So as I try and think about how to fill out the whole scene on some of these areas, really having to use the prototype a lot to handle that front part, or be technically the railroad south side of the track. So you've got a nice bridge here over a ravine, which is a really cool shot in the model as well. And we're heading in now to Winston, so we're at West Winston, and then East Winston there'll be a large paper mill here, a couple other small industries, and then a Y track to allow for helpers to turn, and that just depends on you know, if you want to model helpers or not. In the model version, they do use helpers to push over the mountain. We're coming up here closer to Fall River, which is the kind of major yard center. We'll go over a river here, which I'm just going to call Fall River, and assume that's it. Just at a scene around that curve is an area called Wits End. We're really heading in now to the west area of town, with a couple number 20 crossovers, a large grain facility, a small commuter platform, and really a lot of intricate track work around the industry before we expand from 2 to 3. So I'm modeling this area based on an area in Minneapolis I found not far from the tracks, and really it feels like a place you would actually rail fan, and you'll see that a little later in the video. But like I said, I'm really having to use the what would be now camera right portion as the prototype as inspiration. As we continue to head railroad east, we are approaching Fall River Yard. At this point, Fall River Yard is completely my own track plan, and the reason I did that is that I really liked some of the features of the yard layout I did on for Avon on the St. Louis Lime route. I want to take some of those features and then kind of change them around a little bit based on just how I want to operate. So taking out one of the switching yards, extended the local yard, added longer departure tracks, and relocated the intermodal terminal to be a little farther west and a little bigger than it was. Also have added a 3-track fuel pad for run-through activity, and then the east portion here of the yard, modeling it based on an area of Spokane that I really thought was interesting. So Spokane's used here on the west end and the east end. Like I said, I'm just having used the prototype a lot for inspiration. So at this point, the UP main line's broken off back there by the Amtrak station, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do here in terms of scenery, but it ends up looping down grade and then underneath the BNSF main. So I'm going to make that a river scene where it cuts under. I'm not sure, but there'll be a couple staging yards over here, and there's a whole nother district of this route that I've not even started on the track work yet. So check out the video by NS Modeler 24 and stay tuned for future updates as I continue to head towards building this route.